Good evening and welcome to everybody for this Facebook Live session today. And I have with me Dr. Ashwini Ghaisas, who's a dear friend, a classmate. She has been a consultant gynecologist in the UK and Ireland. She has done a MRCOG from London, UK, and is now working in Nashik with Datar Cancer Genetics as one of their directors. So welcome, Ashwini, for this wonderful discussion on menopause matters and cancer screening and genetics.
Thank you so much, Nilima. Thank you for inviting me, and it is a pleasure to be here on this program. And I look forward to a very eventful chat and gappa in the next hour.
Yes.
And I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Oh, good, good. It's exciting because we have so many exciting discussions happening, lots of personal anecdotes and stories, and even a
Yes.
poem at the end. So please do hang on till the end of the interview. And Ashwini will be talking to us about so many different things today. So, Ashwini, the first question I have for you is you worked in UK, Ireland, and then in India as a consultant gynecologist, and then you've shifted to cancer screening. So, what has your experience been of working in so many different places and also changing your career from obs and gynae to something like cancer screening?
Nilima, it's been a really exciting journey, I should say. We were classmates in BJ when we did our MBBS, and then I went to Ireland where I was completing my requirement for MRCOG, and during that I also worked in pathology and neonatology as part of MRCOG, and then after I cleared part 2 MRCOG, I was working with Well Women Center, and I think one thing I have realized, and I want to share that with everybody today, is that women are the same all over the world.
Absolutely.
You know, they will not come to the hospital unless they are horizontally ill. You know, they are walking around when they are vertically ill,
Yes.
and they will put themselves last in
Yes.
the hierarchy of the agenda, or and they will not come for preventive health.
Absolutely.
So I think this kind of got this fact got more and more ingrained in me, and when I came back, I actually worked as a gynecologist in Nashik, and then I came to the Datar Cancer Genetics. At that time, we were doing personal genome analysis, which is a preventive tool to see your genetic load, because you get one copy from your father and one copy from your mother. And that is my preventive, inclination that brought me here. And slowly we changed into cancer genetics, and cancer screening is part of that. So this is how I actually got involved with Datar Cancer Genetics, and I think it was a fantastic change of interest, I think, and I learned so much, and I suddenly realized I know so little. So I learn every day because the advances are at such a high speed that it is absolutely difficult to cope up with the advances all over the world in cancer and genetics. So I feel that, basically we as gynecologists are all aware that there is no proper screening in place, and menopause has been a very, very important topic, very close to my heart, and now we are all going through it. So
Yeah.
it is even closer, it's even closer to our heart. And I think it reminds me of one thing, just quickly, a small story. When I was working in the Rotunda hospital, um, I was pregnant, expecting my first child, and the pregnant patients would look at my tummy, and next time they come, they would say, "Oh, where's that pregnant doctor?" So I thought they understood. They thought I understood them better. So now I feel the same applies to menopause, because
Yes.
I feel women feel I understand them better.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
So this is how my journey started, and Data Cancer Genetics is integrated molecular genetics lab. We are set in Nashik. It is one of the first labs, molecular genetics lab in India, which are highly accredited. We are NABL, ISO, as well as CAP and CLIA accredited. And we have continuous proficiency testings happening. And most importantly, we generate the data here, as well as we have a team of bioinformaticians, and also reporting is done in-house. So, you know, we are all in one lab in Nashik, and we are happy to serve the community. So that's about myself.
That's really nice. I mean, I didn't know that it was the only one in the country. That's amazing.
A CLIA accredited lab. We are the first ones to get CLIA accreditation. And we are also one of the highly accredited labs who are into COVID testing.
Okay.
So we are also doing COVID testing here in Nashik.
So why cancer screening? Like, I mean, as a gynecologist, you have so many fields open to you, and in preventive gynecology, there is even like there's so much. So why cancer screening, and how did you end up with cancer screening?
Yeah, it's an interesting story, really. My maternal side, my maternal grandfather is one of 8 children and a Kokanastha Brahmin family, and one of my maternal aunts, who's also a gynecologist, who's working in UK, and she got diagnosed of breast cancer. Now, with the awareness and everything, she was in her early 40s. Her elder sister had died because she was diagnosed very late with metastatic breast cancer. And because of that, I kind of got into this story. When we came back to India, the whole family was offered screening for that particular BRCA1 variant. BRCA stands for breast cancer gene, so BRCA gene. And also that aunt's daughter at a very young age developed, immediately after her marriage in her 20s, she developed breast cancer. And that's when it all started. We were all offered counseling, we were all offered testing for this BRCA variant, and we were all tested, whoever were obviously voluntarily ready to get tested, because people look at testing in a very different way. People perceive risk in a completely different way. So there were some family members, even doctors in our family, who were not willing to get tested because they said, what next? So it was interesting to know how people think, how society thinks in genetic screening.
Almost like the test is the cause of the cancer.
Yes. Very interesting, very interesting. And at that time we were thinking, okay, even till now when I talk to a lot of my gynec friends, they feel okay. A lot of lay people feel that it is transferred from women to women. And then I want to share another story where we got a gentleman approached us, and he asked if we could check this variant in his blood sample.
Gentleman.
So, a gentleman approached us, and of course we take detailed history, and there is a lot of the times we offer pre-test counseling. So he called us, he wanted to know, and he gave us the history that his brother was in US attending to his young daughter at age 25, who was a student and was diagnosed, unfortunately, of breast cancer. And because her father was there, he was a caregiver, and he was in US, he was also offered testing. And he underwent testing, and he was found to be a carrier. She was 25. He was only 56 without any history of cancer. But there you go, he was a carrier without any manifestation of cancer, and she was actually manifesting breast cancer. And
we don't ask about the male side. We only talk about female first degree relatives, and we talk about female cancers.
Absolutely. In our family also, some males have been diagnosed of the carriers, but we are more concerned about their daughters, because though they are at a higher risk of getting pancreatic cancer or male breast cancer, all these cancers, but they are more likely to pass it on to their children. And that's when the children are likely to get it early in their lives. And this was something
more preponderant in Kokanastha Brahmin? Is that what you came up with?
Well, no, but interestingly, there is some data. We are all aware of Ashkenazi Jews carrying this
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
particular variant of BRCA1, that is breast cancer gene 1 and breast cancer gene 2. These are very large genes. They are very highly studied genes. And we all have heard of Angelina Jolie's story.
Yes, yes.
Do you all? Yeah. So Angelina Jolie basically got her breast removed, and also later stage her ovaries removed
Yes.
because there was this deleterious BRCA mutation in her mother and grandmother.
Right.
Remember, she did not have breast cancer, but
Yeah,
she
but
got prophylactic.
Ah,
That is to reduce her risk of getting breast cancer, getting ovarian cancer. She underwent surgery and removed breast, removed her ovaries. So people are getting more and more aware because of this Angelina Jolie story. So what happens is that these Ashkenazi Jews have been studied in lot of details because they marry in the society, and then they have a high incidence of breast cancer. And it was, so the mutations or the change in the DNA, which is a permanent change in the DNA, which is a mutation, it is studied in these Ashkenazi Jews. And these two or three common mutations are called founder mutations, right? So these founder mutations are also found in Koknasta Brahmins, interestingly, and that they are the same variants that are traced in their family. So my grandfather's story, to complete that, out of 5 brothers and 3 sisters, 2 sisters family have multiple members. Also one brother's family's daughters have shown this kind of hereditary breast and ovarian cancer. So this is what kind of shot my interest up again. And I, being a believer in preventive health, I felt if we know, we can do something about it. You know, if we don't know, what can you do? But if we know, there is always some alternatives, some reason. Once you know, you are actually able to take some action. So this is why I kind of moved to cancer screening. I do counseling in our lab. Whoever comes, I also offer pre-test and post-test counseling and interpretation of reports. And this is how we actually also provide, this is one of our portfolios, that we provide cancer genetic screening for hereditary breast ovarian cancers, as well as hereditary colon cancers, hereditary pancreas cancers, and all other cancers which are likely to be hereditary in nature.
Because in women, I mean, we know as we go through the menopause and we get older, we know our risk of cancer goes up. Like statistics is statistics, but almost like 1 in 3 of us is going to get cancer as we get older and older. Now, when you talk about female cancers, you know, breast cancer is talked about a lot. In our country, at least, even though the screening isn't in place correctly, cervical cancer gets talked about. But bowel and ovarian cancer really don't get talked about. And both of us know one of our college mates has recently passed away with bowel cancer. And that kind of triggered me to think, you know, when I do my courses in menopause or whenever I talk to people, even when I spent my time in Bhutan, diagnosing ovarian cancer early is such a challenge. So we used to have like wards full of patients, like, you know, filled with ovarian cancer patients diagnosed late with ascites and, you know, metastasis all over. And it was really heartbreaking. So can this kind of, how can, you know, this cancer genetics and cancer screening actually help the common woman, you know, the woman like you and me? At least we are lucky, we're aware. Even though we are doctors, I don't think we actually are that proactive in getting screened. Certainly, you know I hesitate, and I talk about this a lot, about how women are very reluctant to spend on themselves, whether it's screening or treatment. You just kind of keep postponing it. It won't happen to me, it won't happen to me. So the cancer screening and the genetic stuff that you're working with, how does it help the common woman like you and me? And maybe, you know, if there are clinicians listening, how can they use this to improve their reach to their patients, and particularly with bowel and ovarian cancer?
Yeah. So this is a very interesting question, and I think we probably might end up discussing this question for quite some time, because I would like to divide it into 2 or 3 parts. The first would be how breast, cervical and ovarian and bowel cancer should be screened. The second would be what, as Datar Cancer Genetics Director, how I can offer some non-invasive solutions which are more accurate, which are more predictive in nature, and which can, you know, give us a better idea what lays in future for us. And the third would be, as you said, our doctor community. So I would start with our doctor community. I mean, how we are so confident in giving advice to people that yes, pap smear. Pap smear has to be done every 3 years. If you are combining it with HP virus, human papilloma virus, okay, every 5 years, but it has to be done every 5 years until age of 65. And how many friends do you know, Nilima, who are getting their pap smear regularly? They run in the different direction when it comes to them.
Yes, very few.
That is one thing. Second thing is breast examination. Okay, we do breast examination, we teach breast examination, we you know, offer women for clinical breast examination, but how dedicatedly do we do that for ourselves? And who should be doing it?
Yes.
When should be genetic screening done? All these, I think, need to be talked about. So I feel the first thing would be breast, because breast cancer is the commonest in India. Second thing is, when you come to menopause, you're already too late, because the peak in the breast cancer is before 50 years of age.
Right.
Okay, so age of menopause in Indian women is 46. We around mean age is about 46. We all know that. And about mean life expectancy is about 70.
Yeah.
So how many years are we spending post-menopause where we really need to look after ourselves? So that is something we need to talk about. So when you come to breast screening, we need to have opportunistic screening. We do not have any organized screening in our practice in India. So a woman comes when she's in a reproductive age group,
like
when she's having children.
When we see like patients now, even a simple question, what one or two questions should the doctors be asking their patients, or what information should the patients be volunteering to their doctors, so that they get the screening they need in the time frame that it should be done? That is the important thing.
That's a very good question. That's a very good question. I think I used to ask 3 questions. When was your last pap smear?
Yeah.
Do you do breast examination? Do you want me to check your breast? This was the second. And third is there any history of cancer in your family?
Yeah.
In your close relatives? So I think these 2-3 things, and again, these 2-3 questions, and regularly, whenever a woman comes, even if you know that she doesn't need to be examined, you please do pelvic examination. You please check her breast, and you also offer her pelvic and transvaginal ultrasound. And I believe that they come for delivery, they may come for 1 or 2 years, maybe for family planning advice, and they are completely lost to follow up. Unless they have heavy bleeding, they want hysterectomy, they may come. But otherwise, they suddenly appear when they start feeling hot flashes and sweats and mood changes and difficulty having husband-wife relationship and all this. And then they feel, oh, I didn't have any problem. That is why I didn't go to the doctor. You know, so I feel that
suddenly they find a lump. A year or so
suddenly
later.
They find a lump, and there is huge element of anxiety. But another thing we need to tell them is, it's okay to examine your own breast, because you know what is normal. So whenever it is abnormal, you are the first one to find out that something is not right. Bring it to our notice. That is the only thing that is going to save you, because a surgery, a curative thing, can be planned when the cancer is diagnosed in the very, very, very early stage. And that is the bottom line.
You don't expect that some guru or some kadha or some local malam application is going to dissolve it. It doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen.
That surgery is the thing that will give you the longest cancer survival.
Correct. Absolutely. And people are surviving. Long-term survival is good when it is caught in the first stage.
I have friends who are alive after 15 years. No problems. Clear.
Correct. So cervical screening, again, we don't like speculums. We don't like pelvic examinations. None of the women do. But please, please, please get it done. those who are not from medical faculty, and most importantly, those friends who are females and from
Get it
medical
done.
faculty.
Yeah, get it
Please
done.
remember, when was my last mammo? When was my last pap smear? And do I need to get it done again? And I think cervical screening is heard, but even in India, I read somewhere that in Kerala, it may be in the range of 6%, or in Maharashtra, certain
1%.
regions, it is even less than
1%.
0.3%.
Yeah,
So
less than
yeah,
1%. And I can tell
less
you
than
for
1%.
sure, even when I was doing free colposcopies, doctors didn't come.
Yes. So sad, really, because we do not want to know. People feel अज्ञानात सुख असतं असं आपल्या मराठीत म्हणतात. So people feel की ignorance is bliss and better not to know anything. I had a colleague here. We have a mammo van. Recently, we want to donate it to a cancer hospital as a gesture of goodwill from Datar Cancer Genetics, and we were offering mammography here in the office. And she said, "No, ma'am, I don't want to know." You know, and I couldn't convince her. And I am not in the place. I'm in an office now. I'm not in my consultancy, so I can't offer even breast examination. But very interesting thing about breast and cervical screening is they are accessible. Breast is accessible, cervix is accessible, but ovaries are not, and colon is not. Absolutely. And that is one thing I want to talk about is why you should know about family history, why young women getting cancer should screen themselves genetically to know whether this is a hereditary cancer or not. Because now the guideline says that
ovary, breast and bowel go hand in hand for many people.
Absolutely. And their symptoms are very overlapping. Their symptoms are really overlapping. There is abdominal bloating. There are digestive symptoms. You know, there is loss of weight sometimes. There is lack of appetite and very non-specific. It could be because of change of season. It could be because of any reason that suddenly you don't feel hungry.
And many women are used to having these symptoms with periods. You know, this kind of low backache, tummy pain, stomach upset happens with like premenstrual problems are so common in women. Women don't pay it they don't give it another second.
Absolutely. And they don't come to the doctors.
No.
They do their home remedies. It's okay. I am a great believer in home remedies because I grew up in a house where only thing you would be given is a homeopathy tablet or an Ayurvedic kadha. So nobody was thrilled. Nobody was thrilled that I went for modern medicine. But it's okay. There are ailments which can be treated very well. Some chronic ailments with Ayurveda, some chronic ailments with homeopathy, but case selection is most important. And acute conditions need modern medicine, and we know that all. So I feel that ovary cancer is often missed. 75% of ovarian cancer cases are diagnosed late. They are diagnosed in the 4th stage of cancer. Only 25 are diagnosed in the first stage where they can be cured. They can be actually cured. I know some people, I know a doctor friend who had very young girls and she was diagnosed and she's completely cancer free for last 20 years, 30 years.
She's fine.
Yes. So I feel if you're diagnosed in
those days,
grade 1,
it was just chance, you know, and those days they didn't even have the resolution of ultrasound we have now. Even then, she was diagnosed early and treated and she recovered.
Oh, great. And she's keeping well.
Yeah, now she's elderly, but she survived ovarian cancer for so many years without recurrence.
Yes. And that is why when we say now genetic tests were not heard of earlier. No. Coming back to my point, that genetic tests were very expensive. They were not heard of. They were not easily available. And again, ignorance is bliss. Let me tell you a story. I got a call from South India one day of a 39-year-old lady. And I like to tell stories. Hope you don't mind.
No, I love stories. Stories are just amazing because they just tie the human experience together. I mean, without a story, we can't relate with each other. The story is what makes us connect. Yeah, go ahead. Story. I love stories.
So this lady called me. She said, I spoke to my doctor. I am a young, late 30s, and she had breast cancer. And she said, I want to do a genetic test. My doctor has suggested genetic test. So I was starting to take history. She said she has a sister who's 42 years of age. She lives in US, and she is also suffering from breast cancer, but she is BRCA negative.
Right.
So this lady was aware that BRCA genetic cancer, hereditary cancer exists, and she said, what should I do? And I said, okay, you should actually go for a panel of genes, because
Okay.
BRCA1,
Panel?
BRCA2 negative breast cancer, BRCA2 and BRCA1 genes are very highly studied genes. We all know about them. We've heard about them.
Yeah.
They are talked about more. But there are other genes which also cause hereditary breast and ovarian cancer.
Right. Okay.
That is why we recommend that if this is the first genetic test in your family with history of young person suffering from cancer, or history around 50s cancer, and a family member also with cancer, or some unusual presentations like male breast cancer, we say that you go for a panel, because we are looking for a needle in the haystack. So I suggested panel to this lady, and she agreed. So I talked to her, I counseled her, she sent us the sample, and we obviously, BRCA was not discovered in her blood sample, but we discovered a gene called CHEK2, CHEK2. Okay, and we thought this was a likely pathogenic disease causing mutation. Right. So I said to her, this is likely cause. Will you please convey this to your sister in US and see if she is also positive for the same variant, because there is very limited data in publications, because they are not studied unless the families come forward. Unless they come forward, they get themselves tested, we will find reasons. We will find more and more reasons for these young cancers. Yes. And sure enough, she called me back about 6 to 8 weeks later. She said, ma'am, my sister has the same variant. And I said, great. Wow. So we know that you need to get some family members checked for that variant also. So when you do this, if there is a variant found, you only need to check that variant in the family members. So you don't need to spend on the panel. We know which variant to look for in your family, which gene mutation. But so how you ask you how this information is going to be useful. So when we know that there is cancer in the family, they start screening these women early. So if somebody is positive, they will start screening them with breast examinations from age 25, for ovarian cancer from age 30.
Really young. That's really young. Okay.
That's quite young. And men say from about 40, because they get it later, predisposition. So, and what do you do with this knowledge? A lot of people ask you, what is the use of knowing this? How am I going to get benefited? So two things I always tell them. One, you will know if you are getting a hereditary cancer. About 5 to 15% of all cancers are hereditary. I should say that about 5 to 10% of breast cancer. So if you take 100 women of breast cancer, 5 to 10 women will have hereditary predisposition. But ovarian, some data show up to 20 to 25% ovarian cancers may be hereditary. Wow. So all ovarian cancer patients should get genetic tests done. Then only we will be able to detect their positive family members, and we will be able to screen them, catch them young, and we will be able to make them survive longer and not succumb to cancer. That is one thing. Second thing is, once you know,
they also talk a lot about these you just create the worried well. So what is your opinion about this? When we screen people, and that was the big thing. When I was in UK, they used to talk about like mammography and routine stuff, rather than you bring people in like and screen them and make them have a mammography. So you just create a tribe of worried well. So people are constantly worried about getting cancer, but actually their risk is low.
Yes.
What happens about those kind of people with this screening?
Yes, this is. I completely agree with you that this is, we create a group of women which are worried well. And we don't want that on top of our menopausal symptoms.
No, absolutely not.
We are already anxious. We are already a little bit irritable. And, we don't want additional worry to tag along. So I completely agree. I feel that you should tell women about screening modalities available, but they should make a decision, because screening is not for everybody. And I feel people should be given a choice. If they don't want to do it, if they are going to worry, it's best to leave them out. This is what I feel. But I think it is your job how skillfully you tell them, you empower them to make the right decision of getting themselves screened, and elevate their anxiety, talk to them. That is why counseling. So genetic testing is a multi-step process. You talk to them pre-test, tell them what the test is, tell them what a negative result means, what a positive result means, what will happen if they're negative, what will happen if they are positive.
So it's
And
a
if they
really
want to
detailed
avoid,
discussion. It's a detailed
it
discussion.
needs detailed discussion. It does really. And interesting thing is, we feel it is for the West. We
Yes.
feel that these things happen in the Western world. India, it's not for India. Let me tell you another small story. We had a lady from Pune, and she came to us with a history of breast cancer in her mother, in her maternal aunt, so real sister of her mother, and also maternal grandmother.
Right.
And 3 of the women succumbed to breast cancer, diagnosed late, and she was quite anxious. She felt that she has hereditary cancer, but still she gathered courage. She came, she got herself tested without having any cancer, and she was diagnosed with a BRCA2 variant. She went back to her doctor in Pune, and she sat down, she discussed her options, and she underwent bilateral mammo removal of her breast. She underwent bilateral mastectomy as well as breast implants. And later on, I heard she also was planning to get her ovaries removed at a later age. But let me just give you some piece of statistics. If you remove your breast, of course, your risk of breast cancer is going to be reduced by almost 90%. But if you remove ovaries, you are reducing your risk of getting ovarian cancer by 96%, and also getting risk of reducing your risk of getting breast cancer by about 68 to 70%.
Wow.
So people are talking about risk reduction surgery. So she was benefited by that. And third benefit by knowing is, if you are a cancer patient and if you are a BRCA positive person or any of the hereditary gene positive person, there are special drugs like PARP inhibitors for the medical faculty who's listening. So a drug like olaparib, they are available, they are given as maintenance therapy, and they do very well basically in the survival also, and they actually deal with this BRCA or any hereditary cancer cases. So
that's really interesting, because we're going to be discussing some of these cases tomorrow in our panel discussion on menopause hormone therapy, post breast cancer.
Yes.
So
Yes.
interesting to see what comes.
Right. So basically for ovarian cancer, as you said, there isn't a right diagnostic modality, but there are a lot of serum markers, isn't it, in the market?
Yes.
People say that, okay, this is the cancer screening test. So we have multiple cancer screening markers like CA125, CA19-9, CEA, that is carcinoembryonic antigen. All these are protein markers. They are basically derived from tumors. So this is an indirect test, or PSA for prostate. These are indirect tests which are raising a red flag, saying that, oh, there is something you need to look at. So then go to the doctor, get yourself checked, get ultrasound, and see if immediately if there is any diagnosis or not. But what happens is there are certain conditions. Just giving a small example is CA125 may be raised in some benign conditions. So these markers can be more non-specific. They are not directly reflecting the tumor, presence of tumor in your body. So I'll just tell you in short that we published 2 papers recently. One was in the IJC, International Journal of Cancer, very prestigious journal, about a new hallmark of cancer. And we said that in your body, there are certain cells for the medical faculty, epithelial cells or epithelial cancer markers, who show epithelial cancer markers. These cells are circulating in your body in clusters, because there are cancer cells, there are immune cells, these are fibroblasts, which form clusters. They're highly sticky because they have the potential to metastasize. So these clusters are circulating in people who have cancer, and they are not present in
they don't know that they have
any cancer in the body. So we did about enrolled about more than 16,000 patients. About 10,500 were asymptomatic patients, and these clusters were about less than 3% in those patients.
Right.
Then we
But
looked
they were
at
still
about
there.
500,
Even though they didn't have any symptoms of cancer, still you found 3%
still
with cells.
3%. So
Wow.
maybe later on, or maybe a transient finding, that remains to be seen. But at least an alert is raised that there is something. Please be aware. Please check all that. We also had about 5,500 cancer patients, and in them it was almost 89.8%. So about 90% cases we found those clusters. So we
Wow.
proposed that circulating clusters of tumor cells is a hallmark of cancer. So this is
Wow.
what we did, and a year later
How
we
does that
followed
change the
these people up.
staging? Like, how does that change the staging? Because as in medical school, we were learning, we follow that TNM classification, and we stage the cancer,
Yes.
FIGO classing, etc. So how does that, finding these clusters in the blood, normally we would say once a blood vessel is breached, it becomes stage 4. So how does that change
Yes.
the staging?
Correct. Very good question. And it might be more technical for the people who are outside medical faculty, but it upstage the staging of tumor. So if you
Wow.
feel it is carcinoma in situ and it is T1, N0, node 0, M0, metastasis 0. And if you find circulating tumor cells in a patient of in situ breast carcinoma, it puts it from M0 to M1. So
Wow.
it upstages the tumor. Second thing is it
So the
also
treatment will
in
change. So treatment will change.
correct, the treatment will change because only surgery might not suffice. There may be micro invasion of microvasculature, which is not detected by any other modality. In some of our studies, we found that when we were monitoring longitudinally some patients, it was detected that as early as 3 to 6 months, we are able to find these markers of cell-free DNA and circulating tumor cells in the blood of people where there was absolutely no radiological residual disease. So
Wow.
that is a topic for some other day. But coming to my second published paper, where we looked at 1 year data, and we also looked at asymptomatic patients, sorry, symptomatic patients, about 4,400, who had a blood sample taken before they went for biopsy.
Yeah.
And almost 4,000 of them were confirmed of malignancy, and there was concordance in about 93% cases that yes, we found the clusters and you also found it malignant on the biopsy, which is the gold standard. So I
Wow.
think we are moving towards some non-invasive methods away from biopsy, just a simple blood test. And the circulating tumor cells are bright future for our non-invasive screening, because if there is anything in your body, it will be reflected in your blood. So
Wow. That's
anything that will
amazing.
be there in blood.
That is
So this is,
amazing.
I feel, is moving slowly towards advances in screening, which I hope that it slowly and surely will get incorporated in the existing screening, so that more and more women are diagnosed early, more and more
Absolutely.
women can get treated and be cured of cancer early, because early diagnosis is equivalent to cure
Absolutely.
in cancer.
Yes, yes. Wow, that's amazing. I'm just like, I've got, my hair is standing on end just listening to that. But, all this is really stressful. I mean, you talked about menopause and cancer screening, but all of us go through stressful times in our life anyway. It's like you can't get to 50 without having ups and downs in life. Everybody has had their share of some sort of stress or not. And you
Absolutely,
had yours as well.
absolutely.
I'm pretty sure this screening, this family screening, it must have been quite a tough time for all your family. So, what did you do to keep sane? Like, what kept you grounded? And I've always known you to be this amazing, smiling, happy, really kind, compassionate, grounded person. That when I look at you, I see somebody who's really loving, and you radiate that kind of warmth. So, what kept you so sane and grounded when all this kind of stuff was going on around you, all these ups and downs were happening? What kept you so grounded?
Such a good question, Nilima. And thank you for all those kind words. But I think you should ask my husband. Am I always like that? And he will vehemently deny that she's not like that all the time. But seriously speaking, my group of friends, pets, books, and our book club, And I must say, I turned to Vipassana again. Both my husband and I have been meditating since about 2002, 2003. We found that this was something that we were looking for. And at one point, I had taken a career break before I joined genetics when the kids were in a difficult age and I needed to focus. And that was the time I went into teaching Vipassana, or teaching the
Okay.
first part of Vipassana, which is called Anapana meditation, to school children. And
Wow.
I was coordinating Nashik district, and it was a rewarding experience. I wish I could go back to that maybe later in life when I retire again. But then I came back into full-time work. But I feel that menopause is a very trying time. It's a transition, and it actually is uh, offering you so many opportunities to, go back to your hobbies. One day I asked myself a question, that when I was married and the kids were not born, what was I doing? And I remembered knitting, and I had made lots of sweaters even for my children. And then I learned crochet because I was only knitting on 2 needles. And then I learned a crochet from a very good friend of mine. And since then, I love crocheting when I have free time, when I'm traveling, when I'm listening to YouTube videos. Or so I feel these are the things that are keeping me grounded, they are keeping me sane, they are reducing my stress levels. And I feel that practicing Vipassana or other meditation techniques offer you many tools, to so keep your journey on to discover what you like, what you find beneficial, but stick to that and practice it daily. This is
Yeah.
what I feel, that studying and learning different techniques help to certain degree only when you are practicing, only when you are doing inner engineering, or only when you are doing, say, art of living. Once that course finishes, and if you don't practice, it will stop giving benefits. So I feel I practice, I try to, at least I try to practice every day during the day for 5 minutes sometimes when I'm feeling stressed, and it really is like best friend for life. So, and my
You
knitting
spoke
is a
a little bit
great
about
stress
your
relief.
book club also. I remember you talking about a book club. That was really interesting.
Yes, it's a wonderful group of 8 to 10 friends,
Wow,
mostly
that's a big
medical
group.
people, a lot from BJ Medical, as well as some are engineers and social workers. And we used to read books, and we still do meet every month and discuss books. And one thing is for sure, you feel stressed, you pick up a phone and call one of them. And then when you keep the phone down, all that is discharged. It's
Yeah.
really cathartic. So books, I feel books keep you on track.
Yes.
And
Books
having a
and
group of
friends.
friends to
Books and
read the
friends.
books
For
with.
women, it's friends.
Absolutely. And to have a group of friends to read books with, to
Yes.
discuss books with. We did some workshops. And all of us had problems with the children growing up, with
Yes.
parents aging, and we learned from each other. We supported each other. We offered hand and a shoulder to cry on, and it was fantastic. So I feel I'm blessed to have a group of friends. And of course, your children are there, your husband is there, you have pets, but I think they all are doing their little bit of share to reduce our anxiety, stress level, all that. So I think that is
You
my oxytocin booster, as you told me earlier.
yeah, yeah.
So
You said something about Gary Chapman's book. That's one I like as well. The Five Languages of Love.
5 love
We're
languages.
talking about books
Yeah,
one day.
yeah.
You mentioned that.
Correct, correct. And I loved that book, and I gave some talks on that in our Rotary Club and all. And basically, it helps you to understand your spouse better. We also read Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus when we were um, growing up, and Linda Goodman's Love Signs and Sun Signs. We all used to read that. And I think it helps to identify different people, accept as they are. And books like something like creative visualization also helps. But these 5 love languages, you also can see them in your friends, like words of affirmation, or acts of service, doing little things for each other, or um, quality time,
Yeah,
or physical touch. And the fifth one is gifts, and we all practice
love
these love
this.
languages
Yeah.
sometime or the other anyway. And I feel that they improve your EQ, I
Yeah.
think, and they reduce your stress. When you feel that's okay, that's because he's this love language person, it actually makes me relax. So
Yeah.
I'm a very selfish person, you know, whatever relaxes me, I just accept it and do it.
Yes, that's good. I think one has to be, I wouldn't say selfish, I think, but being self-centered in a way that keeps you grounded and connected and positive actually radiates out to everybody else. So I think it's
Right.
everybody's duty to be selfish, if that's what you'd like to call it, but to be selfish and look after themselves really, really well.
Correct.
Which
And I think
comes
unless
to,
you
well,
serve yourself,
uh, sorry, go
you
ahead.
are not able to serve others. And as gynecologists, if you have to serve women, that's a even more challenging
Yeah.
because we know how challenging women can be. So
Yes,
I
yes,
think first look after yourself. Don't wait for menopause to go to your doctors. I think that is the first important thing I will say to everybody, that don't wait until you are really sick, when there is very limited things we can do.
yes,
So, you know, we should really not be afraid of the C word. This is what I would say. And, you know, get as much information, because information is power. It gives a decision in your own hands. And there's a lot you can do with help of modern medicine now, because there are so many advances for improving the quality of life, getting you free of diseases. I think we should not, you know, miss that opportunity. And, you know, should really look after ourselves. This is what I'll say to everybody who's listening today.
and
And if there are
and you're gonna talk.
gentlemen, please make the
Don't finish.
ladies in your
Don't finish.
family.
Don't finish. Don't finish. You're gonna tell me that poem, that amazing poem we heard from you.
I thought you had forgotten. I was
No, no,
hoping you
no,
had
no, no.
forgotten.
I don't finish. I really want all our listeners to, have a taste of that poem, that 50s poem. And I know it's Marathi, so I'm sure you'll be doing a brief translation also. So I want you to do that.
Okay,
Don't finish.
surely. So we were all approaching 50 about a few years ago, and we were just talking about it. And I, in my spare time, whenever the thoughts come out in poem form, I write poems. And my husband gave me a topic to make a poem. So he said, okay, there are a lot of things. He's a physician, by the way, so he's always looking objectively at things, that some things increase and some things are low.
Yeah.
And you know, that's your theme for your 50s. And I said, okay, so this is my poem. I'm sorry it is in Marathi, so those non-Marathi people, I'll just summarize in the end. कवितेचं नाव आहे पन्नाशी. काही वाढे काही घटे, पटली समजूत खाशी, हसत खेळत हलत डुलत आली पन्नाशी. अनुभव आला, अक्कल वाढली, आले प्रौढपण, स्मरणशक्ती दगा देई, विरळा खेळकर क्षण. केस गळले, वजन मात्र वाढे दिसामाशी, हसत खेळत हलत डुलत आली पन्नाशी. दोरीवरच्या उड्या मारताच काय धाप लागते, जिभेवरची सरस्वती मात्र सभा जिंकून टाकते. सर या, मॅडम बसा, स्वर गोड कानाशी, हसत खेळत हलत डुलत आली पन्नाशी. शुगर वाढली, बीपी चढलं, व्हिटॅमिननी संपाचं फरमान सोडलं. भाज्या फळांनी पोट भरीन ठरवतीये मनाशी, हसत खेळत रमत गमत आली पन्नाशी. चिडणं वाढलं, मेनोपॉझल, चिडणं वाढलं, हसणं रुसलं, ताणाचा चढला पारा, सुख दुःख राग लोभ केवढा फापट पसारा. आनंद हवा, शांती हवी, नको पैशांच्या राशी, हसत खेळत हलत डुलत आली पन्नाशी. नवरा आणि मुलं म्हणती, अगं जरा चिल, आहार व्यायाम ध्यानानेच सांभाळता येईल दिल. मी ठणकावले मात्र, खाईन तर तुपाशी, हसत खेळत हलत डुलत आली पन्नाशी. यश कीर्ती धन दौलत आलं सारं येणं, हीच वेळ साधू देऊ समाजाचं देणं. घटो मोह सरो द्वेष, सुख येवो माझ्यापाशी, हसत खेळत हलत डुलत आली पन्नाशी.
Amazing.
It just basically when you are coming close to 50s, you're losing memory, retention, recollection is hampered, your fitness is going down the drain, you are losing hair, you are losing your capacity to even exercise because of physical ailments.
Yeah, yeah.
Your vitamin levels have gone down, you are laughing less, your confidence levels sometimes goes rock bottom. But your weight is increasing, your BP is increasing, your sugars are increasing, your irritation is increasing, your stress levels are increasing. But also your seniority is increasing, you're
Yeah.
more respected in the community, your experience is increasing, your job description changes. Suddenly you're guiding people, suddenly you are, you know, teaching people, you are nobody's subordinate anymore, you are somebody's boss. And you know, suddenly your wisdom increases, you are getting more practice, you are getting more money. And so it is funny really that you know, we come back to basics again, we come back saying that, you know, okay, we've got it all now, but the main thing is what I want now is not just money, but I want my peace of mind to increase,
Yes.
I want my happiness index to go up, I want my glycemic index
Go down.
uh, so all indices are to be talked differently, but I feel this 50s is the new beginning, it's a
Yes.
second inning, and it's up to us. My HbA1c levels went little bit near 6, and suddenly I was told off, and I was told that you are in your 50s, get your act together, because then you won't get a chance, you know. So I completely agreed, though I didn't like it, but I agreed to that advice. And so sometimes you have to listen when an advice is given to you, I think, and take it in good spirit, guys. I think we need to know what we want in life. Surround yourself with people who are happy. Thank you, Nilima. I had a great time playing with your dog when I was in Pune.
Yeah.
And I think we need to share what we have. And this is how, sorry, my battery is running low suddenly. Oops. I think we have come to the end anyway. Just give me a minute.
While Ashwini gets back on track. Ah, there you are.
Yes.
So,
Sorry
what's
about
new?
that.
No worries, no worries. What's new? 2021.
2021, when I talk about our institute, we are setting up a lab in UK where we will be able to process samples and reduce our transit time. So it is going to be a great boost to our services serving, because currently we are getting samples from UK, currently we are getting samples from US, Germany, other countries. And, you know, we want to reduce the transit time so that the samples reach us in better condition, and we are able to process them faster. We are also
COVID must
looking
have
at this
caused a big.
exciting research.
COVID must have caused a big problem with all that.
There was a lot of delay in shipments coming, but biological samples, they facilitated much earlier than the other shipments. So we must say that they understand the importance of this. And so that is what is happening. A lot of exciting research in coming from our institute. We are also continuing to provide good quality, 100% accurate reports for COVID in Nashik population. For me, my challenge in the next year is to keep myself fit
Yeah.
and to help others get fit.
Yeah.
So I think this is going to be my motto. And generally, because I'm the only medical doctor, a clinician, I should say, in my company, a lot of people just, it's like sometimes I'm running a walk-in OPD. So I, I will continue to do that. A lot of people affected with COVID and coming to advice, and, you know, a lot of girls sitting in front of me asking for pregnancy advice and antenatal advice. but that continues. I think I like talking to people, so, and continue the studies. I feel the more I read, the more I get into work, I'm understanding and I'm learning so much. So I want to be a student and keep learning. So that's what is new.
And how do people find you? How do they contact you if they want, like, if they
Yes.
hear this and they have somebody, and it's raised, like all of you who are listening, if something about this interview has caught your attention, you're affected by cancer in your family, or there's some family members that you're worried about, if any
Yes.
of the stuff that Ashwini has discussed has particularly affected you, do get in touch with her. Please, Ashwini, can you tell them how they can get in touch with you,
Yes.
how they can find you?
Yes. Basically, you can reach me at my work email, AN Ghaisas, Ashwini Nitin Ghaisas. So AN Ghaisas @datarpgx.com.
Okay,
We
I'll put
also have
I'll
a
put that in.
website. Yeah, so AN Ghaisas @datar, DATAR datarpgx.com. We also have a website of the same name, www.datarpgx.com. You will get information of all the tests and all the analytics we offer. I haven't talked about what we offer in cancer care, in relapse refractory metastatic cancers or early diagnosis of cancer, and how personalized medicine is on the horizon and it's changing the medical management, which is now very individualized. You will get a lot of information on that website. You will also be able to download some brochures. You will also be able to email us on response, and my assistant will forward them to us or one of our response coordinators. So just drop in your queries, they will reach us. If you want me particularly answering those queries, just mention for attention of Ashwini and they will come to me. So there you are, we are at your fingertips, and if you have anything, just reach out to us. We will definitely see what we can do for you. We are free to give you information as well. So first, I want to thank you, Nilima,
Thank
for
you, Ashwini,
giving me this platform and sharing what we could share about cancer screening. Also, you asked me for my poem, so
that was
thank you for that.
the cherry on the cake, because I loved that poem the first time I heard it, and I've always wanted to hear it from you again. And this has been the most ideal opportunity, I think, because this is going to be preserved for eternity.
That's true. Yeah,
So,
I had
so
recorded
happy
it.
you could do it.
But now it's a video as well. Yes,
Yes.
thank you very much.
Thank you,
It's been a
everyone.
pleasure.
Thank you, Ashwini.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye, everyone.
Have a great evening, guys. Bye.